Demetrius Samuel, again, this was something that you were kind of referred to at the beginning of. Crystal ball comes through. He's committed to Syracuse currently, 2026 commit. 4-star. He's highly ranked for the 2026 class. It's always interesting to see how these things will transition if they were to ever reclassify. And you do have confirmation that he is planning to reclassify to 2025, which would be, again, crystal ball to Florida would be a good pickup for the 2025 class.
Yeah. Now, he says somebody on our message board, I'm going to give him a hard time. I'm just kidding, by the way. But they said, hey, I'm hearing that he's going to reclassify. And I said, well, I heard it too from him. So he says, here's his quote. It was a decision me, my parents, and coaches thought was a good decision. High school, I love high school and all, but sometimes you've got to move on. I thought it was a better decision for me. So he's a very good player in the 2026 class now with the intention of being 2025 when the school year starts. 6'2", 180 pounds, plays at Heritage in Palm Bay, which is that Melbourne area, which, by the way, that Space Coast has given Florida a lot of good players through the years, man. I mean, Wilbur Marshall, that's one. Chris Collinsworth, that's one. Was Marcus May not from over there? I mean, there's been a bunch of guys, okay? And, in fact, he is related to Marcus May. That's his cousin, the former Gators defensive back. So he's going to reclassify to 2025. He's committed to Syracuse, which has a young coach that is very popular, and he comes from Georgia and is doing a heck of a job recruiting-wise up there. But ultimately, we think this young man's going to end up a Florida Gators commit in the 2025 class. Now, he hasn't said anything publicly that he's definitely going to do that. He's just saying, hey, I'm still committed. UCF and Florida right there. But I know that Florida feels some optimism. And what a pleasant young guy to interview the other day. He's just like a breath of fresh air, just a super nice young dude. Look, a really good player. So people are going to ask about his ranking. So right now, and I'm going to try to explain this, and I'm sure I'll do it poorly, number 84 recruit in the country for the 2026 class. He's a top 100 guy. So if he reclassifies like he's supposed to, because I'm going to wait till it's official, his ranking will then be looked at again. Now, why could he move down? Here's why. And I'm just bracing people for the potential of him moving down. Because he was not only graded off his sophomore film last year. How do I say this? That's the last film they looked at. And when you're grading that grade, you look at him differently than a guy that's a junior and a guy that's a senior.
Surrounding
they should do
talent.
An upward. Yeah. They should do an upward climb. So he's going to have to be rated off of that. So off his 10th grade film, which is very good. So then this fall, they will grade what is now going to be his senior year film, and he'll be compared against all the other seniors, not the juniors. So, he's got some physical development. He's tall. He's tall. He's a little wiry, but he's got a good frame, and he's just a really good player. And I hope at the end of the day he's still a 4-star. My gut says he will be, but he might dip a little bit at first, and then when that senior film comes out, he'll go up. But people are going to say, oh, my God, if he ends up at Florida, he's going to Florida. That's why he got dropped. Now, it's really simply, I'm sure I didn't explain that well. He's been graded as a sophomore when he's now really a junior. So he hasn't been graded against the guys in this class,
I expected
he's going to be a senior. He's going to be a senior. I'm sorry.
I expected it completely that he would drop, given that beginning he's younger than what he's going into. So the talent.
He's good.
Sure.
Yeah.
But look,
and by the way, sorry.
No, good.
Well, let me just point out, Florida doesn't have any safety commitments right now. Okay, so he's a good player. He's a Gator legacy. He's from an area where Florida has done very well, and he feels a need. Yeah. So if Florida can get it done, let's not. First of all, he hasn't said anything to me, but if he had, I would certainly not spoil anything. I put in a pick for him to Florida. That's based on reading the tea leaves and listening to him and talking to other people. But I never say, oh, it's a done deal. I'm not one of he could change his mind, but it would be a nice pickup. I would like that a lot. By the way, he says Marcus May is definitely recruiting him, trying to get him to go to Florida. And I love the Space Coast area. I think it's one of the hidden gems in Florida. So many great players. The great James McGriff, who never had a chance to play for Florida because he died in the drowning accident, maybe would have been the best guy from that area. So it's always been good to the Gators, and maybe they can pull this off and get Demetrius Samuel. I think they can.
Fantastic. And the last little bit here before you go, Keith, has got Ty Jackson, somebody you've talked before on our show, number 1 linebacker. Need the linebacker position again for this class as well too. Ty, we seem like to have a very good lead at the moment. He was there this weekend too. Where do we feel like we stand with Ty after this?
Yeah, I don't know that Florida leads. I mean, there's a few schools. So Alabama is sort of the on-3 recruiting prediction machine. That's our crystal ball. All right. Alabama leads for him in that at last check. I haven't checked today. Georgia's very much in it. Georgia made him a big priority on his official visit weekend, okay? So you got those two. Those are two heavy hitters. You're talking about two schools in the top 5 of the recruiting rankings right now that have multiple national titles between them in the last 10, 15 years. All right, so the two elite programs in college football, they like him. He likes them. Florida State's also involved. He's going to officially visit Florida State later in the year. Florida State's kind of doing a little differently. They're going to have I think they're going to have a big official visit weekend later in the season. Some schools don't like to do that because game week can be a little dicey. It can be a little bit, well, do we have enough time for these guys? We got to win this game. And so Florida would rather do most of its official visits in the summer. But he's going to officially visit FSU. And his dad told me that there's also a chance that he's going to get out to Southern Cal for a game. Lincoln Riley, I saw a quote the other day that says that their NIL is headed up. That's a concern. You know what I mean? And then you got Miami lingering. I haven't heard him really mention Miami lately, but they're right down there. And, look, they're still recruiting Ben Hanks Jr. They're still recruiting Bryce Fitzgerald. These are 4-star Gator defensive back targets. If Miami wants this guy, you better believe that with the NIL we've seen them put together, that they're going to try to be involved. And so, but look, he likes Florida a lot. I think he's been to Florida 3 or 4 times this year alone, official visit in June, 1 or 2 visits prior to that. His dad played college football, so not at an SEC level, but he understands. By the way, his dad looks like he can still play. He's been sort of guiding him through this process. High academic kid. So guess what's important to him? The Gator Made program is very important to him. He wants to be something beyond just a football player. And so that's why they're doing that. They're doing it for 2 reasons. One, they want to help these young guys become young, successful men. But 2, they know that in certain families, it's going to be a good recruiting tool. But Florida's very much in it. He's supposedly going to be back. Well, let me phrase that. He's supposedly going to be back for the Florida-Miami game. He's got a top 10 right now. Florida's in it. He says he's going to narrow it down. He said he's planning on being at the Florida-Miami game, and I don't know what to make of that. Does that mean things could change? I don't know. But right now I expect him at the Florida-Miami game. And Florida feels like they're certainly a strong contender, and if they have a good season, they can do something. And one other thing I need to point out, he sees the potential for early playing time in Gainesville. So you got potential for early playing time. Florida's going to put together a strong NIL package for him. Florida's starting to make some headway in South Florida, starting to get more involved in some big recruitments down there. I think that's significant. He likes the Gator Made program. He likes the academics. He's a real quiet guy, all right? And obviously when I went to Florida, it was a big party school. But if you want to be on the quiet side of that whole thing, you can be, and it's close to home. So I think looking at all these factors, if Florida can put a decent product on the field, that could be significant for him because everything else is there. He likes the coaching staff. He likes the academics. He likes the Gator Made program. He thinks he can play early. Everything's there. So what's missing? Well, we know what's missing.
Success.
We know
wins.
what's missing. Yeah, that's right.